Go ahead and open up the Creating Equations practice sheet, and it should look something like this. I have the steps at the top that show you what to do. We're going to go through those steps, and we're going to go through questions 1, 2, and 3, and you'll do number 4 by yourself. So if you're following along, you should get some 3 answers. All right, so very first one. Rashida makes $9.86 per hour at her job. She is saving up to buy custom Nike shoes, which will cost a total of $80. Not too bad for custom shoes. Write an equation that will help Rashida calculate how many hours she will have to work until she has enough money to buy her shoes. If you've ever saved up for anything and you had to calculate like how long it would take you to save up, you've already solved for X and you didn't know it. Okay, so the first thing when you want to set up an equation, something that might be on your AccuPlacer test, you want to first look for the variable. And remember, the variable is like the X, the Y, a number that could change. Okay, so the variable, red flag words that would cue you to the variable would be like words like per or every. If you see those words, that probably means that thing or that word is the variable. Okay, so Rashida makes $9.86 per hour. Look at that. So hour is our variable, which makes sense, right? She could work 1 hour and that changes how much she gets paid. She could work 5 hours and that's going to change how much she gets paid. Okay, so the variable is hours. And I'm just going to say H will be hours. So I know my variable is going to be H. Next thing you want to do is find the coefficient, and that's the number attached to the variable. All right, so in this case, the number attached to the variable is $9.86 because that's how much she's getting paid per hour. And in order to figure out like her total paycheck, I take $9.86 times the amount of hours she worked. Okay, so I know my equation. I'm just going to write that kind of down here in my blank space. Is probably going to have this $9.86 times H or hours somewhere in my equation, right? All right, the next thing you want to do is look for your total. It might not always have a total. Like on your AccuPlacer test, they might not have a total, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and see if this word problem has a total. Okay, so she makes $9.86 per hour. She's saving up to buy custom Nike shoes, which would be a total of $80. Okay, so our total is going to be 80 bucks. That's how much she needs to her paycheck to be, $80 or more. Okay, step 4, look for a constant number that might add or take away from the total. There might not always be one. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if there's any other numbers in this equation that would indicate whether it's going to add or take away from the total. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anything else, so we just have these 3 things that we got to work with. So she gets paid $9.86 per hour. I know I'm multiplying those 2 things. And then I know that she wants her paycheck to be $80 or more. So she's got to work until her paycheck is $80 at least in order to afford those shoes. So your equation would just be $9.86 times H equals 80. If you were to go through and solve for X, you'd be able to figure out exactly how many hours she has to work. All right, this one is very close to my heart, near and dear. When I was a senior in high school, I thought for sure I was going to go on a road trip with my friends to Los Angeles, California. Why? I don't know, but we just thought that was the first thing we were going to do after we graduated. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. We were so close. We were so close. We had the car, we had the people, we had like the map and the plan, but one person backed out, so we couldn't afford it anymore. All right, so here's an example. That is a real life example from my life, and it could be really relatable to you. Amanda is planning a trip, and her car can drive a total of 300 miles per tank of gas. She is planning to drive to Los Angeles, California, which is a total of 1,900 miles away. Write an equation that represents how many times she will have to fill up her tank. So step 1, look for the variable. So we're looking for per or every. So Amanda's planning a trip and her car can drive a total of 300 miles. There we go. Per tank of gas. So if I only had 1 tank of gas, I'm only going 300 miles. If I had 5 tanks of gas, I would take 5 times 300 to figure out how many miles I can go. All right, so my variable is tanks of gas. I'm gonna go ahead and just say my variable is T, standing for tanks of gas. Okay. She is planning to drive to Los Angeles, California. Okay, I need to find the coefficient, so the number attached to the variable. All right, and our coefficient is this 300 right here, right? I'm taking my tanks of gas times 300 to figure out how many miles I can go. So 300 times T. I know that's probably going to be somewhere in my equation. Okay. I am planning to drive to she, this fictitious Amanda, is planning to drive to Los Angeles, California, which is a total of 1,900 miles away. Perfect. There's my total. And I don't have a constant number that might add or take away from this distance right here, this 1,900. There we go. So this equation represents how many times I would have to fill up my tank because I have the total miles I need to drive over here, and I have my 300 times t over here. Okay, so your answer for number 2 is 300t equals 1,900. All right, last one that we're going to do together. If you're one of those students who's like, we haven't done step 4 yet, I bet this one is going to involve step 4, you are 1,000% correct. Okay, so get ready for some step 4. All right, Mateo takes a yoga class at the gym. It costs $10 per, that's a sign that there's going to be a variable, $10 per class to attend the class. Mateo also needs to buy a yoga mat, which will cost him $15 one time. So he's only going to buy it one time. He doesn't have to buy it like every single time he has a class. Write an equation that will calculate the total cost of Mateo's yoga class. All right, so we already kind of looked and saw the variable is going to be class, right? If he takes one class, it's only going to cost him $10. If he takes 2 classes, it would cost him $20. So the class is the thing that's changing. It's the variable. So I'm going to go ahead and put C for number of classes that he takes. All right, step 2, I need to find the coefficient or the number attached to the variable. That number is 10. We already kind of talked that one through. If he takes 2 classes, it would be $10. So I am taking 10 times the number of classes he takes. So I'm just going to write that down in my spare space right here, 10 times C. I know that's going to be somewhere in my equation. All right, look for a total. It might not always have one. And this equation doesn't really have one. He's trying to figure out what his total is. So that is not known. We're trying to figure out an equation that will calculate the total cost for us. Okay. So no total, and that's okay. Do not freak out. Step 4 will complete our equation. We need to look for a constant number that might add or take away from the total. And in this case, we do have one. So he has $10 per class, but he also has to spend this extra 15 bucks. Okay, he's not going to do this every single time he takes a class. He's just going to do this one time. So instead of multiplying by our variable, we're just going to add it on to our total cost, right? Because if he took 4 classes, we would took 10 times the number of classes he took, 4, and then we would just add 15 onto that to account for that one-time purchase of a $15 yoga mat. All right, and that would equal his total cost for taking that yoga class. So your answer for number 3 is just 10C plus 15. If you feel like you can do number 4 by yourself, you can feel free to exit this video and start. I'm going to go ahead and just give you a little hint and show you the variable, coefficient, total, and constant number. So that way you have everything you need to set up your equation. David works for a food delivery service. He gets paid $10.44 per delivery. So our variable is going to be the number of delivery he makes. If he makes 1 delivery, we would take 1 times 1044. If he made 1,000 deliveries, we would take 1,000 times 1044. Okay, so I'm just going to put D for delivery. That's our variable. But he usually spends $26 at the end of the night in order to put gas in his car. Write an equation that represents how much money David has after a night of working. So our coefficient, or the number attached to the variable, $10.44. If he made 1 delivery, we would just take $10.44 times 1. If he made 10 deliveries, we would take $10.44 times 10. So I know I'm taking $10.44 times the number of deliveries. So I know that's going to be somewhere in my equation, 1044 times D. And now I need to look for the total. There's not necessarily a total in here. That's what we're trying to figure out, how much money he has at the end of the night. Okay. All right, now we need to look for our constant number that might add or take away from the total. So our constant number is this 26 right here, right? We're going to figure out how much he makes, and then we're going to add in the fact that he spends $26 per night to fill up his car with gas. All right, so I just need to figure out, is this 26 going to be adding to my total or taking away from my total? And that should help you out with number 4. If you have any questions, pop back onto that Google Meet, or you can always call, text that Google Voice phone number, or email me, whatever you're most comfortable with.